If you had to rank CJ Bailey amongst the top quarterbacks in the country, where would you put him?
You are Locked On Wolfpack, your daily podcast on the NC State Wolfpack, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Wolfpack Nation? It's time to get locked in with Locked On. Thanks for making Locked On Wolfpack your first listen each and every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Our Friday show is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. As always, terms apply. Happy Friday to all. As always, I'm Grayson Boone, joined by former Wolfpack defensive tackle Kenton Gibbs. Kenton, I saw a very interesting list come across my desk on Thursday afternoon. On3 put out their way too early top 25 quarterback rankings coming up for the 2025 season. It's kind of already spoiled there on our tab. Where would you put CJ Bailey? Because On3 put him at 15th in the country. Do you think that's too low, too high, right where he should be?
I think it's about right where he should be. And I say that because, how do I put this nicely? The quarterback play that I've seen out of guys this last year, mid isn't the word to describe it. It's been poor, piss poor, if you will, bad. I've seen guys that some of the best guys I think are just thermometer guys, some of the best in the nation. I think it's like, oh, he'll tell you how good the team is around him. But there weren't many thermostat guys that will raise the temperature of your offense. I did not see a bunch of those guys last year. And the thing is, I believe CJ Bailey is one of those guys. I honestly and truly watch him play, and I say he raises the level of your offense to some degree. And that was him as a true freshman. That was him when the game is still moving super fast and everything is like, everything is flying by you. And you're like, well, what just happened? I think that him going into next year and taking another step, I think he'll be just fine. But I think 15 is fine because, again, some of the guys in front of him, I'm like, do we all have access to the same film? Are we watching the same thing? Because I don't know where you're getting your information from that this guy is a good quarterback.
So in just a second, I'll show you numbers 11 through 25 that I had posted on Twitter. But, yeah, my initial reaction to seeing CJ at 15, to be quite honest, I thought it was a little bit high. I mean, I love it for CJ Bailey. I think he deserves some credit, and he deserves a lot of love for him being thrust onto the scene this year and having a good deal of success, all things considered. There was a lot of positives to take out of the play that we saw from him, but you also had those freshman moments, right? You saw plenty of instances where he's holding on to the ball too long, taking sacks that you can't afford to take, not effectively going through all of his reads and finding the open man, which are all freshman things you come to experience. So I was a little bit surprised to see him as high as 15. I would put him in the top 25. I think I would probably have him on like the high 20 range. To me, that feels about right. But 15, hopefully that'll build some momentum in his own confidence heading into the 2025 season. And something that Kenton was talking about before he jumped on here, I think his surrounding cast in terms of the wide receivers and the running back room, they'll even make CJ that much better. What more do you have to say about that, Kenton?
Yeah, absolutely. And the tight end room as well, right? You've got one of the best tight ends in the nation coming back in Justin Jolie. And then you sit here and you look at the wide receiver room, which I think is going to be fantastic next year. You look at the running back room, which, again, I think this is one of the better running back groups we've had in some time, dating back to Bam Knight days. This is a really, really good group that you got there. So I'm looking at them and I'm saying to myself, hey, they'll be able to help CJ Bailey out if I am wrong and he's not a thermostat guy. If he's a thermometer guy too, well, guess what? They're good enough to be like, oh, well, wait a minute now. All the guys around him are a warm 80, warm 85. Like this is, so he will not, he's not the type of guy to take them down. At minimum, I believe he'll match their level. So, him being in this top 15, again, it's not really too surprising for me. And for anybody who says he should be significantly lower, I'd simply ask, okay, who played at a higher clip on a consistent basis? Who played at a higher clip on a consistent basis that's behind them that you can also say has the same room for growth going into next year? Because if it's a guy that, hey, he's been playing college football for 4 or 5 years and he was slightly better than CJ, well, guess what? You saw the old CJ. That's not the new guy that you're going to be getting in 2025. So I think that 15 is high, yes, but I think he wants it.
So to add further context in here, number 1 was Sam Levitt from Arizona State. Number 2 was Drew Aller from Penn State. Kent and I both have some thoughts on that one. But getting into some of the ACC names, you have Carson Beck, who's now with Miami. He's at 7. Cade Klubnik is at 8. And now I'll pull up 11 through 25 for you on the screen. Eli Holstein of Pitt at 13. You see Diego Pavia, the season he had at Vanderbilt, he's right ahead of CJ Bailey at 14. You do have CJ at 15. Darian Mensah from Tulane to Duke, he's sitting at 16. And a couple other of these names kind of surprised me that they're behind CJ. So, like, for example, Rocco Becht of Iowa State, he just played for a conference championship, and yet CJ Bailey's ranked ahead of him. You see Avery Johnson there at 20. We know full well what Avery Johnson's capable of. We saw that in the Pop-Tarts Bowl. He had another great season for K-State this year, and yet CJ Bailey's ranked ahead of him. You see other names like Dylan Raiola with Nebraska at the bottom, Miller Moss, who's now entered the ACC with Louisville, and the next chosen one at Ohio State rounding out this 25, Julian Sayin. Yeah, this is a great list for CJ to be relatively high up on, and I think it speaks a lot to the respect that he's going to be getting entering the 2025 season.
Yeah, I wholeheartedly believe that he'll be one of the guys to watch in 2025 because, again, he's got the surrounding cast. He's got the experience. I think the only thing that would be lacking that could potentially be a problem is the lack of continuity with offensive coordinator. I think that may be a hindrance, but even with that, when you're a freshman and you're playing with a reduced version of the playbook, you're not really, it's obviously it's best to have 2 years straight in the same playbook, but it's not like you've been learning one playbook for 2, 3, 4 years, and then now you got to change over in your final year. It's much more of a, I was finally on the precipice, or I believe I figured that out, but now I've got to learn a new one. But I'll tell you what, with what Roper was talking about with very high tempo and all that, most high tempo teams don't have very complicated playbooks. They right. just don't. By way of the fact that you're looking at, hey, if we're going to run plays that are basically one signal, 1 or 2 signals, and that's it, well, guess what's going to happen? You don't have a ton of complexity in that, because if you make that overly complex, you're not able to effectively trust everybody on the field to understand their assignment, because you're asking 18 to 22-year-olds, hey, I know that you have calculus and all that. Hey, I know that you have to go do geology 103 and all that, but let's come back and let's not only learn a regular playbook, let's learn an expanded playbook in greater detail than normal, because we're going to go fast and we don't want to run the same plays at all ever. And if that is the case, then I'd like to bring up the Bruce Lee quote about fear not the man who practices 1,000 kicks once, but the man who practices one kick 1,000 times. Because at the end of the day, that is what most up-tempo offenses do. They run their stuff, and it's like, hey, you need to stop us from doing our stuff while we're going really fast.
And on that note, what would you say is the number one thing you would like CJ Bailey to work the most on this offseason?
I would probably say throwing with anticipation. Too often he needs a guy to be open instead of throwing a guy open. Trust yourself, young man. Trust yourself. Trust yourself to read and process that defense out. And, hey, if you start off and we're turning the ball over a ton against, ECU or something like that, and you're like, oh, man, the processing just isn't there, that's fine. We'll live with that. But trust yourself and don't have those situations where you're holding the ball for long periods of time. Because if you think about what that looks like on any concept that is dependent on outbreaking routes, right? A smash route or a flood concept into a boundary or anything like that, where you've got guys that are going to be to the sideline right away, you've in essence cooked the play. Like now you're playing backyard football, trying to figure something out on the fly instead of saying, you know what, I'm going to see, like, hey, I believe that this guy is going to be here at this time. I'm going to go ahead and let it go. And by the way, obviously I'm expecting that to get better because a full offseason as the guy tends to do that to people. A full offseason with all of your receivers and you're throwing to the full complement of pass catchers tends to do that. So I'm expecting that to increase. But that's still nonetheless something I'm like, hey, I'd love to see it increase.
I think it also certainly helps that Kurt Roper, that was the quarterback coach, is sticking with him, and he's now the offensive coordinator. That's valuable continuity to take from one year into the next. Yeah, what I was going to say is essentially the same thing. I want CJ to trust his eyes more, go through the progressions, and not give up on a route too early. Because I do think there were several times, I've seen some of the tape washed back, that you had like a wide open KC or you had a wide open Justin Jolie, and he couldn't quite let it rip on time early enough to trust that the ball would get to where it was supposed to go. And I think those are the little things that will get cleaned up from year one to year two. And if they do, that makes him a dangerous cat in the ACC play in 2025. If you do trust that you have a wide open Justin Jolie and you hit him, sayonara. Who's going to stop that guy? I have very little answers for you. So yeah, that's definitely the number one thing. I want to see CJ go through his progressions a little bit quicker, a little bit more accurate, and trust what he's seeing. Because if you can spread the field in that way, look out. This offense is going to put up some points. Coming up next, Kenton already noted it, but we do play ECU to open the 2025 season. They also released which day it's going to be on. It's a Thursday night home opener. We'll give you our thoughts after a quick word from our sponsors. Our Friday sponsor is Gametime. Attending the NFL playoffs is an experience like no other. The energy, the excitement, and the connection with other fans is simply unmatched. I certainly remember the thrill of seeing my favorite team clinch a playoff win live. It's a memory I'll never forget. So this year, Gametime makes it easier than ever before to create those unforgettable memories with their new feature called Gametime Picks. It filters out all of the fluff to show you only incredible deals on the best seats, and you can focus on what matters the most, being there. I've used Gametime Picks to grab tickets for upcoming playoff games, NC State basketball games, NC State football games, you name it, and it couldn't have been easier to use. I found super deals that make it incredible value for amazing seats, and I can even preview the view from my spot before buying. That's that panoramic view of your seat in the app before you buy. Plus, knowing my tickets are backed by the Gametime guarantee gives me complete peace of mind always. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. And again, create an account and use redeem code LOCKEDONCollege. That's LOCKEDONCOLLEGE, Locked On College, for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Middle portion of our Friday show, expanding upon the Thursday night home opener. So this was announced, actually, ironically, on Thursday. NC State will open their 2025 season against the Pirates of ECU on Thursday, August the 28th. Obviously, it will be a night game in the Carter. Those are always a great time. Probably a 7 or 7:30 kick. However, I'm a little bit perplexed by this because being that it's against ECU, both of these schools, they definitely tried their hand at a hearty tailgate, and I take that very seriously myself. I love me a good tailgate. I'm a little bit surprised that it's not a Saturday game, but on the other hand, I have come to love the Thursday night home opener because that opening weekend of college football, it usually spans from Thursday, Friday, Saturday, some on Sunday because NFL's not playing yet, and even Monday night. So you get a full 5-day stretch of college football. NC State playing very early in that, you kind of get to enjoy the rest of it stress-free, unless you lose, in this case to ECU. I'd have a lot of stress if that turns out to be the case. But Kenton, what are your thoughts about opening the season on a Thursday night?
I'm not a fan of it. I'm not gonna lie to you. I'm never a fan of middle of the week games, but I mean, hey, it is what it is. I guess this will be before the students are in school, right? This will be like
no, they're in session. They're in session.
What this will be like the first week or so of them being back in school?
That'll be roughly like the second or third week.
I guess I get it. I'm not a fan. I'm not gonna lie to you. I'm not a fan of it. I'm a big fan of, keep the games on Saturdays. But hey, it's not the worst thing in the world. I'll say this should not be an advantage for either team. This shouldn't be like a oh man, I'm tore up about this because I mean, at the end of the day, if it is going to be on a Thursday, make it in the or make it in the evening so that folks got time to get off work and do a little something maybe. But even still, it's like, it'd be nice to keep it on Saturday, but this ain't the worst thing.
I will say, I do think it's a slight advantage being that it's a Thursday night, because night games in the Carter are definitely just a little bit more intimidating than they are in the daytime. That being said, I'm interested to see what this environment will look like because, yes, it is on a weeknight. Some folks are still going to have work on that Friday. And so I think it might take the atmosphere down just a couple notches. But then again, it is ECU. It is NC State. We just saw what happened in the Military Bowl a couple weeks ago. I don't think this really matters in the grand scheme of things, especially for both of these teams. They're going to be chomping at the bit just to put the ball down regardless. If it's Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, whatever, they just want to play football. So being that we get it 2 days earlier, I don't think that part matters. The night game in the Carter, I think, is probably the biggest aspect of this. But yeah, I mean, I have come to love the Thursday game, but I kind of wish this ECU game was on a Saturday because then you get like the whole, like a true atmosphere. Everyone's in the stands, everyone's tailgating, and there's no other, circumstances that you can't be there. But again, it doesn't really matter. My biggest thing, you better win this one. You let them get away with winning the Military Bowl. We're all currently paying the price for it on social media because they have been everywhere like we expected them to be. If you lose this one, talk about a fan base checking out faster than ever. You know where that's headed if this one goes south.
I really don't like those guys, man. I really don't like those guys. I don't care for them at all. I'm sorry, but NC State fans aren't secondary fans. We don't, NC State's out of it, so we're going to root for somebody else. Or, NC State didn't play on the big enough level, so we're going to root. No, we live and die by the pack. Those dorks, those losers, those clowns, we love the Dirty Fun Club. We're Dirty Fun Clubbers. Like you got bloodlines that go back there, and don't tell me your great grandpappy was on the ground screw way back in the no. Tell me somebody that makes that relevant to you. Us Wolfpackers, this is a special place with special people, and again, we don't have to be secondary coattail fans of somebody else. I don't like them. Coach Doran, if you're hearing this, do me one solid. Just one. If you don't win nothing but 2 games next year, this one in the Dirty Foot Club, I'm begging you. I'm pleading. I'm on one knee, Dave. Please beat these Bucks. I don't want to see no more of these clowns talking on social media. I don't want to see it no more.
Look, we took some heat the last time we discussed this on here, and I understand there are actual ECU fans, but the reason that we talk about this so much, because Kenton and I have both encountered so many people that act like they're ECU fans, and then you blink and all of a sudden they got light blue on, and all of a sudden, they're talking about Hubert Davis on the timeline. It's so many, and don't act like it's not true. Everyone knows that it is. Wolfpack fans, we have seen it all over the place. There's also the rare hybrid of NC State and ECU fans. I will say you exist, but you are a rare breed. I hope you understand this. I also do not care for East Carolina. I don't like them. I don't like their fan base. I don't like the arrogance that they walk around with, even when, sure, you beat us in the Military Bowl. The all-time series between these two schools is, honestly, it's embarrassingly close. I'll give you that. NC State has fumbled more than just a couple games in this series. That's something we have to deal with, but I want nothing more than to lay it on the Pirates on a Thursday night to open the season. You're going to have your full roster, even though I don't think that was an excuse in the Military Bowl. You just lost anyway. Take it to them Thursday night. Set the tone early, show up, show out, and take care of business. After that, nothing else matters.
You know what I always say, Grayson, if you scratch a pirate, the Dirty Foot Clubber bleeds. I do not care for those guys. Coach Doran, make it happen, man. Make it happen. Lock in. You ever seen the meme of like when you're down in 2K and the guy goes from sitting back to lean forward? Exactly. Lean forward from the first quarter, buddy. Be locked in for the Roper. Be locked in from the first quarter. Elliott, be locked in from the word go. From when we hear that foot go to ball, be locked in. Do not take these guys lightly. As much as I don't like them, they're a respectable football team. I'll give them that. I'll give them that. You cannot sleep on this team and overlook them, as we just saw in the damn bowl game.
Yeah.
Give them their respect, but whoop the wheels off them and respectfully send them on their way.
As if you didn't already have enough motivation for a new season beginning, you get to start it with the last team that embarrassed you to close the last year. That should be all you need to come out the gates hot. And yeah, we better see it on that Thursday night. NC State ECU week 1 on a Thursday night home opener to begin the 2025 season. Coming up next, we're going to round out our Friday show with Fan Friday, addressing our top comments of the week. More on this after a quick word from our sponsors. Last couple minutes of our Friday show. Now time for Fan Friday, addressing our top comments of the week. Here we go. First one comes from Derek Nipper. He says, I know you guys said no shot Keatts is gone after this year. However, is there any chance that if he has more games like Virginia Tech, does that change? So obviously, we blew a double-digit lead to Virginia. We blew a double-digit lead most recently to Virginia Tech. If those types of performances continue, will there be a change? I am inclined to believe no. I think this season, it's about as literally free as a free pass can possibly get. Is this season extremely disappointing so far? Absolutely yes. But are they going to can Keatts for this? No. I think if anything, he'll enter next season with a bit of a hot seat, but I think this one is very firmly as a grace period.
You know, I look at Louisville men's basketball and I say, hey, what they're doing over there, what Pat Kelsey is doing over there is probably the biggest thing of why you can't give up on Keatts this year, besides, of course, the Final Four run last year. The Final Four last year gives you a get-out-of-jail-free card and the new nature of college basketball where you're only 1 year away from turning that thing around and doing a complete 180. You know, that's what's always going to have you in a spot where it's like you're never that far away. As much as people want to believe it, as much as people want to say it, you're never that far away from being not just good, but nationally relevant in terms of college basketball. You're never that far away, especially playing in the ACC. So even if Keatts bombs it up all the way through here, I mean, he doesn't have enough napalm performances in him to get kicked out of the university this year. And
I'm talking like if they lose out, and that's like what, 15-ish, 13 to 15-ish games from here on out, I still don't think that would be enough to pull the plug. So like I said, this year feels about as free as a free pass can possibly get. And guess what? He earned it. He won the championship. He made it to the Final Four. He earned the extension. Until further notice, it is what it is. Next one here comes from T to the Rock. In context of trading the run for a fresh start, he says, absolutely not. The run was the most epic sports run I've experienced as a 30-year fan. I mean, we beat UNC and Duke in that run, which made it even better. I would have traded my everlasting soul for that kind of run before it happened, so I can endure a couple more terrible Keatts seasons if that's the trade-off. Trev, I would say that the majority of us agree with you. And I think sometimes how soon we forget how magical that run actually was. Yeah, you beat Duke not even just once, you beat them twice during this run. You beat them in the ACC tournament and you beat them in the Elite Eight to go to the Final Four. That alone would have been crazy. You also beat the Dirty Foot Club in the ACC championship to bring home a trophy and a banner for the first time, and I think it was, 32 years. In the ACC tournament, you also beat 3 other schools that have won a national championship, Syracuse, Louisville, and Virginia. And then, yeah, you do make it to the Elite Eight. You do make it to the Final Four. Everyone in the country was talking about NC State and DJ Burns. What a moment in time that will forever be for NC State basketball fans. Do not ever wish that away. Because, again, we don't know when we'll see something like that. In fact, we may never see it again. That was one of literally 2 runs ever that a team has ran through their conference championship in, I think, 4 or 5 days and then made it that far. The other one was UConn with Kemba Walker. 2 times in the entirety of college basketball history. That is what you witnessed. The statistical improbability of what we saw this past spring was like less than 0.001%. That's pure magic. We're not wishing that away for absolutely nothing.
This is your daily reminder that KJ Keatts has more ACC championships than Armando Bacot, RJ Davis, and Caleb Love combined.
Any of them on that roster. None of them have one.
That feels good, doesn't it? That feels good. Yeah. Yeah, it feels nice. Feels nice. Well, to that end, yeah, no, absolutely not. Absolutely. This run, I mean, again, we're not even getting into the logistics of like, hey, not even buyout aside, right? Everything buyout aside. Even if you could replace Coach Keatts for $0 going out, besides whatever you're paying a new coach, we're not even considering like, hey, that hire could also be bad or worse,
right?
And like, even if we say, well, the odds are, look around the conference, they could be better. Actually, no. Coach Keatts has been fairly middling, which means half are better, half are worse. It is, in fact, a direct coin toss as to whether or not you think things would be better or worse with or without him. But what we do know is, again, that run. I mean, Grayson, you've been a Wolfpack fan all your life. How many ACC championships have you seen between football, basketball, and baseball?
0. That was the first one I've ever seen. Again, I've been a fan my entire life. And a lot of people who are like me know exactly what I'm talking about. We have never seen something like that. A lot of us thought we never would, based on the state of the athletics program the last decade plus. We talk about the sentimental value of what we saw, texting your family or your friends, or if you made the trip out to Dallas or Phoenix for the Final Four. Seeing the sports world talk about NC State in that kind of light, we've never felt that if you're below the age of like 30 or 35. Never have seen that before. Don't take that for granted. We don't know when we're ever going to see something like that again. It was so unbelievably cool to watch DJ Burns ascend to like God status. Like he's on every talk show, ESPN, like First Take, everything. Everyone wants to know about DJ Burns. Our DJ Burns. That was so cool to witness. And again, I hope that none of us ever take that for granted.
And the way in which it happened as well, and where a Raleigh kid is your leader in that thing, in DJ Horn.
Can't
a young man that's local from here, a young man that's 2 bus rides away from here.
I just got full body chills when you said that. It like that type of memory that will live forever. The Raleigh kid that transfers back to NC State is the one that puts up, I think it was 29 points against the Dirty Foot Club to win the ACC title. You can't script that kind of stuff, man. That's the kind of thing that makes sports better than literally everything else in the entire world. That is why you are a fan. And we've waited so long to see something like that. So, yeah, I mean, I've said it 78 times already. Don't take that for granted. Don't wish it away. I know things are tough right now. Water will eventually find its level, but we're going to have to bite our tongue for a little bit longer. Again, it is what it is. Next one here, flipping over to football. So this is the exact type of comment that we were talking about yesterday from Cambo. It says, we need Phillip to pull a Coach Prime and come here to coach his son. I'll put it to you this way, Kenton. What do you think is the most likely scenario? Phillip becomes the head coach, the offensive coordinator, just the quarterback coach, or nothing at all? He just wants to watch Gunner in the event that he does come to NC State.
If he were to come to NC State, I'd probably say QB coach, maybe OC.
I would agree.
I probably think that would be the thing there. And here's the deal, right? The objective truth is, as much as people take shots at Deion Sanders or talk about what Colorado is or is not, he objectively paid his dues in the coaching ranks.
Yeah.
Like, people tend to forget, Prime Prep was a high school that he coached for quite some time. And then he jumped up to Jackson State, HBCU, coached there, coached his son there, coached Travis Hunter there. But he coached there for multiple years and ushered them to their most success in school history, virtually over the span that he was there. And then he ascends to the Division I FBS level, to where, like, yes, most guys who succeed at HBCUs are not being called up for Power 4 jobs. Absolutely. But you can say, hey, he ran an entire college program for a period of time before he got up to the Power 4 level. That cannot be said for Phillip. He is a high school coach right now. He has not taken any steps in between, unless he decides tomorrow to leave and become a head coach to leave the high school where Gunner is and become the head coach of some college in the area. It's not exactly 1-to-1, but I would love to see him be potentially a quarterback coach there.
Yeah, I think it would be a gigantic leap of faith for both Philip himself and for NC State to make him the head coach because of everything Kenton just laid out to you. Dion had been doing that. He had already had boots on the ground for quite some time, being a head coach of a program. And yes, Philip is doing that for a high school, but again, that's a massive jump from high school to D1 ACC level ball just to coach your son on that level. But yeah, I do think the most likely scenario would be the quarterback coach, and that'd be great. Philip would be very much involved with the team, but not in an overbearing way. Obviously, he's coaching Gunner, and that's the best coach you could possibly ask for in that type of scenario. So I would love to see Philip as a quarterback coach. I think anything more than that would get a little bit dicey. But again, I don't know. Who am I to say? We're talking about Philip Rivers here, and that's an all-time legend. So we'll see how this shakes out. But we would love nothing more than to get Gunner Rivers here at the very least and continue on that Rivers legacy at NC State. Last one here comes from Ben Wilson. He says, now that it's the offseason, I want to get your opinion on the Adidas brand deal. I think we've had some good jerseys in the past, especially the ones with the shoulder stripes, but now they seem pretty bare. What do you guys think about a potential switch back to Nike?
Oh, boy. I've got to break some bad news to NC State fans right now. Here's the deal. Nike was not interested last time the time came to do the jersey renewals and all that. Like, it takes two to tango. Yeah. And Adidas may not be the prettiest girl at the ball, but she's the one that's willing to dance with us. Okay. And again, I know that that's not ideal. I know folks don't want to hear that. It's the truth. It's the honest to God truth. Now, may that have changed after a Final Four run? Possibly. If we could sustain some success in men's basketball or football, I think that definitely adds to our cachet into where we could potentially be in better situations. But at the end of the day, Grace and I are always talking about if NC State can be consistently successful, if we can find a way to maintain a modicum of success here, if. The reality is we are where we are. And where we are, Nike is not interested in a potential switch back. So however bare, however barren, however uninspired, however sexy, however uncool, however cringy the jerseys from Adidas are, it's either stick with them or maybe go to Under Armour. That's it.
Ugh. PU. Totally out on Under Armour.
Those are your options. That's it.
Yeah, so I did a little bit of research on this in particular. NC State had signed a contract with Adidas in 2015. It was a 7-year deal. That expired in the summer of 2022. NC State obviously did renew with Adidas, being that we're still with them. So re-signing in 2022 would tell you that we'll probably be with Adidas for another, 5 to 7 years, I think, at the absolute minimum. My thing on Adidas, and I'm fine with Adidas. I think they've made considerable strides over the last decade plus because it was Nike or nothing for quite a long time. I'm fine with Adidas, but my biggest gripe when it comes to NC State and merchandising, they are far too strict on their branding. And I know it's not an Adidas problem because most recently I was out in Kansas for that basketball game in the middle of December. Kansas has awesome, and I mean awesome merchandise. Not only do they have cool stuff, but it is everywhere. They have multiple gift shops, merchandising shops, flooded with the best type of apparel for a college program. So I know it's not an Adidas problem. You have other Adidas schools like Indiana or Miami or Arizona State, for example. They all have fantastic merchandising. NC State severely holds themselves back with the licensing they allow out to outside merchandising fitters. And I think if they would loosen up on that, you would see some great NC State merchandising. So that's been my longest gripe for NC State, and I know it's not an Adidas problem. When it comes to the uniforms itself, I think what they have right now is fine. I mean, I like the shoulder stripes, but I think even without, it looks great. I would like to see a little bit more creativity in like an alternate uniform, though. I love the black uniforms, but I miss when they had like the military, like all whites with the black, or the Blood Moon Wolf that we wore against, I think it was Florida State back in 2020 or 2021. That was awesome. I would like to see a bit more creativity, but all in all, I'm pretty much fine with Adidas, to be honest.
Yeah, again, to me, if this is the best that you'll get, be happy with the best that you'll get until you can get something better. Make something better happen, and don't really sweat the small stuff of like, Adidas ain't the best, but it's where we are. Make it happen. Do great things. And also, I think that your argument about licensing being too strict is definitely a salient one. It's definitely one that has some merit to it.
And last thing on this, I need the diamond logo to come back at least once a year. I remember we talked about this a year ago. There's no reason that we don't have at least one throwback diamond game every year. It makes too much sense. You would sell $1 billion in merchandise because everyone's clamoring for that type of stuff. That's the type of stuff I want to see. And Adidas can help us make that happen. They did the throwback uniforms when we wore them against Notre Dame in the Hurricane. I'm sure they'd be more than willing to run it back with us if we so choose to.
Run it back, and all of the lower level seats for the first, like, let's say 5 rows up, all of them get Diamond NC State shirts.
Boom. Come on. We're making money for the university here. Come on, work with us. Bring back the diamond uniform. Everyone wants to see it. It would be a universal win across the board. I would bet literally anything. That'll do it for us here on Friday and for the week. Thank you all so much for joining us. Be sure to hit that like button. Drop your comments in the comment box. Tell us what you think about CJ Bailey being named a top 15 quarterback in the country by On3. Tell us your thoughts on a Thursday night home opener against ECU to begin the 2025 season. Anything else you have on your mind, drop that in the comment box as well. Mash that subscribe button on your way out the door. We'll see you right back here on Monday for more. And until then, go Pack.
Go Pack.